Let's try this again, part 2. Good morning, YouTube, or afternoon, or evening, or whatever time it is for you. It is about 3 o'clock in the afternoon here, Monday, April 5th. I'm just coming off. I was off work for a week because I was sick, and then we had the long weekend this weekend. So I'm enjoying the beautiful spring sunshine out in this country. It's a bit noisy out there. I don't know what's going on. I live on sort of, it's not a busy street, but it's an 80-kilometer-an-hour road, so it's a fast road, and traffic can get loud when the windows are wide open. Today's video is going to be about big changes. I think I'm going to make a video today about big changes, which is something some people are not too comfortable with. And I kind of vacillate between letting things happen as they should, which I think I mentioned in my last video regarding being a spinach and just allowing yourself to grow. You might want to watch that one. And actually making things happen, because those are two very different concepts. And I guess people do things differently depending on what their comfort levels are. A lot of people are not comfortable making big changes in their life. Historically, I've always made big. I kill the fly with a sledgehammer. I don't use a fly swatter. I've always erred on the side of too much change or too much intensity or, obliteration. I think it's because I have astrologically Sun in the 8th house, which has Scorpio leanings. I tend to throw the baby out with the bathwater at times. And historically, it's done me well. I mean, I am the person I am because of the choices I made, and I don't have regrets, and I don't mind saying, there were times I quit jobs or broke up with boyfriends or dumped friends or, did what I had to do to put my life back on the track I wanted it to be on. And whether or not those were wise decisions, in retrospect, I don't know, but it's okay. It came out okay in the end. And I'm a big advocate for big changes. I'm a big advocate for taking the bull by the horns. So when I decided to move to the country, last night, what brought this on was last night I had a long talk with an old friend of mine on the phone, and she hadn't spoken to me in a long time, and she asked, I've been reading your Facebook and you have lots of things going on. What's going on? Why? What happened? And I said to her, I was done with Hamilton. I was through with that city. I've lived in that city most of my life, the vast majority of my life, minus 3 years in Toronto in my early 20s, late teens, early 20s, and 1 year in the Canadian Arctic for a year. Other than that, I've lived in Hamilton all my life, and it's a very, very depressing city, for lack of a better word. I think a lot of cities are depressing. That's my personal opinion. I'm not a city person. For a lot of people who like cities, Hamilton is not their first choice. A lot of people who move to Hamilton are kind of disturbed by the socioeconomic problems, the smog, the city council and their lack of any sort of clue about anything, and a lot of talk and not a lot of walk, stuff like that. So I just grew weary, very weary of that city, and kind of like I think all places have energy, including homes, and I do believe in that whole sick building syndrome. I've lived in places and I've worked in places that have bad energy, and it. You get there and you're tired and you just want to sleep, or you're depressed when you're there and you don't know why and you can't put your finger on it. And it took me 10 years, probably 10 years too long, to realize that my old apartment in downtown Hamilton was one such place. It was very, very toxic, sick building with very dark. It's very dark. There wasn't a lot of brightness in there. And in a very bad part of town with a lot of problems. And I needed to get out of that particular building. I also worked in a place that has a very, very, very bad energy. And I need to get out of that place too. That's harder. That's a very much harder hill to climb. So the city, my home, and my workplace, all three of which had bad energy and bad dynamic. And, there is a part of you that thinks, I can make it better. I had this talk with a colleague of mine named James at work. He said, because recently we hired several guys at work that are nice guys. They're professional. They're nice. And I said to all of them on several different occasions, I've said, you guys are classing the joint up. You're making the place more professional. With every new hire, we now have another new guy who's professional and classy in the place, and it's showing. You can see. And James was laughing, and he agreed, and it's true, because you can see the tide is turning, or the weight is shifting. And he said, well, eventually, Joe, this will be a great place to work. And eventually, can't you ever see yourself enjoying it here? And he made an excellent point. And I said, that's great in theory, but personally, no, because I have too much baggage. And I know for me, I'm a square peg in a round hole in that environment. It's a very sexist environment. And it's not what I need to be happy. And it's not what I need to move forward. Even if it improves, it will never improve to a point where it's good. It'll improve to the point where it's almost good, and that's not good enough. Just like my apartment in downtown Hamilton, which maybe some of you YouTube viewers don't know, but Hamilton's a cheap city to live in, and I happen to get the cheap end of cheap. I rented a 2-bedroom apartment for $500 all inclusive, including bills, like including heat and hydro and water and lights, and I mean, it was dirt cheap. You can't get much better than that. But at what price? $500 and a huge chunk of my soul. So you do have to weigh your options. And same thing with the work. The job is great, the pay is good, the benefits are great, but at what cost? When I decided to make the big change and move out to the country, it was a big change. I mean, I had to really sit on a lot of my principles, which have to do with environmentalism, ecological footprint. I knew I was gearing up for anywhere between a 45 and 60-minute commute each way to work a day, depending on where I'm going. I'm not close to where I work anymore. I'm going to be driving a lot. I'm reliant on a car in a way that I've never been before, and that's a bit daunting, and it's not exactly in line with my personal beliefs, but it was a trade-off that I decided to make. Big changes are fun. For me, they are... there's nothing quite like throwing it all out. There's nothing quite like starting over from scratch. And I get that that's not everybody's cup of tea. Some people prefer gentle changes. At the age of 37, I think I'm more gentle than I've ever been. I used to be much more of a sledgehammer type of girl. But these years, I've noticed, I knew that I wanted to get out of that apartment and get out of the city and get out of my job. Now, I've done 2 out of 3. So number 3 is to get out of that job eventually. And that's going to be a slow progression because we're in the midst of a recession. And, I'm scared, quite frankly. I have a good job with benefits, and I'm on a lot of medicines, and I have a drug plan. And how do you turn your back on a drug plan after having, a lifetime without one? And, for instance, I once told a teacher, I'm the first aid person at work, and I was taking the first aid course, and I got in a big argument with a gym teacher who was going on and on about how grade 9 girls like to get out of gym class by feigning asthma. And I was screaming at him, and I said, I have asthma. It's not a laughing matter. It's not a joke. And he said, well, why don't they take their meds then? And I said, because not everybody has that freaking drug plan, you idiot. And that orange puffer is $100 a month. I never had that. My whole life, I never had the orange puffer. I always had the blue one, which was $20 a month, if I could afford it. And that's just for acute attack. So you have to get the attack first, then take the puffer to relieve it. Whereas the orange one prevents it, but you can't afford the prevention. You can only afford the cure. And I've lived there. I know that. I've been there. It's terrible. I don't want to go back there. I like having, benefits and salary. So I have to have a bit of faith in the universe and believe that as I've moved farther away from the city and from the black hole, I'm coming into my own, and things will be good and things will happen as they should, but I'm gently pushing them in that direction. Anyway, those are my thoughts for the day. Hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.